Hey folks, Steve Vai here, and I'm here to talk a little bit about my relationship with Carvin through the years. It's been a long, very long relationship. It started when I was probably 13 or 14 years old, that's right. I used to fetish anything that had pictures of musical gear, whether it was guitars, amplifiers. My mother used to get the Sears catalog, and I'd open it up and I'd look for the page that had the guitar on it, and I'd just look at it. And one day I picked up a music magazine, and there was an opportunity to send away and get this catalog from this company called Carvin that made these amplifiers. And I did that. And I was young, maybe 14 or so. And boy, I got this magazine, this catalog, and it was so beautiful. It had like this big green lawn with these stacks and stacks and stacks of amplifiers. This was like porn. And I just used to fetish this. And I always, so at that age, I was introduced to this company that just seemed just larger than life, you know? And of course, I never thought I could ever have a relationship or own those kinds of amplifiers because they were just so out of this world, you know? But when I was 20, I moved to California, and I started working with Frank Zappa. And Frank had all sorts of gear, and he experimented with all sorts of gear, and he had a relationship with Carvin. And they had brought him and the band some gear. And they watched me play, and they were interested in having me play one of their amps. So I was given an X100B amp, a stack. Okay, so now, I never owned a stack, never thought I'd own a stack, and there it was. I think for the first week, I just stared at it and just disbelief, you know, and wow, it's a stack, you know. And then I used it, and I used it a lot. And Carvin asked me if I would be interested in making a demo recording for the amp, and I thought, yeah, I'd do that. And I wrote this song called Blue Powder, and it appeared in Guitar Player magazine, and I used the X100B on all that. Now, then after that, I started getting into all these other bands, and I experimented with all sorts of amplifiers, trying to find out what it was that I really wanted. I mean, I liked the X100B, but there was just a particular type of sound I was looking for. And I searched, and I found it here and there a little bit, but it wasn't until I had really sort of become somewhat known in the industry, in the guitar community, that I really could work with any company I wanted to. You know, I was so fortunate that I had the opportunity to just work with great companies. And I always felt I went through all the amp companies and found some nice things, but still couldn't quite find what I was looking for. There was an in-between period there where I always had, you know, a relationship with Carvin. I'd known them and I had their gear, but finally at one point they had approached me to see if I would be interested in actually designing an amplifier. Now, I really didn't know much about what it takes to design an amp or how they even really worked. I kind of had an idea, you know, as much as maybe the next guy, maybe a little less. But I knew what I wanted to hear. So I started to do some research into amplifiers so I could at least speak the language a little bit. And I discovered how you can do certain things to really color the sound. So I started working with Carvin's engineers, and we went back and forth. You know, I'd kind of describe. I couldn't really talk in technical terminology. So I would describe in like musician terminology, you know. I need more blue. I need more of like a, you know, a raging ocean. Can you do that? So they had to figure out a way to translate what I was wanting. And they did a great job because I would get an amp and I'd play with it and, you know, say, can you do a little more of this, a little more of that? And they were so willing to work so hard on this. And when we finally came up with the amp that was my dream amp, I was just so thrilled because you know, it's like the gem guitar. You know, I designed this to fit certain idiosyncrasies in my playing, and it turned out great. And I did the same thing with the Carvin. And I was able to work with them to sculpt a sound that worked for me. Was running into some trouble occasionally going to some really exotic places and trying to get my tone, because if I have to use a conventional rock amplifier, I'm miserable. I really am. There's few things that really bum me out. And one of them is not having my legacy. It's just the way it is, you know? To the point where I've avoided doing things because I couldn't use that amp. And so we wanted to come up with a solution that made it really easy for me to basically, or anybody, to have a legacy in your pocket. This is essentially a Legacy 1 preamp. It's got the tubes inside of it. It's got all of the parameters in the Legacy 1 and 3. More, it has more. It has the parameters of the Legacy 3. It's got the master volume, which is so helpful and useful. And it's 2 channels. But when I got this, I found it to be exactly what I was hoping for. And you probably can relate to this when I say it's hard to compromise when you find something you like. You know, it's almost like you throw practicality to the wind and even what everybody else might be doing or saying because you really like something. I find that I just am very uncomfortable compromising. So when I actually plugged it in and used it, I was very pleasantly surprised that I would say it's virtually exactly like the Legacy 1. I haven't really discovered anything wildly different yet, you know, or even subtly different. But it makes sense that it would be exactly the same because it is the same electronics and all. And I'm going into the same power amp. If I went into a different power amp, it might sound different. But the heart of the tone is there. So in any field, there's an evolution of technology, and this pedal craze, because I see it happening more and more now, is part of the evolution of music gear. And it felt very natural to me, and also because I like technology. I like watching technology evolve, and I like seeing how it can serve me as a musician. And that's a great perspective to have, because then you'll find things that serve you. But still, it doesn't matter if technology is evolving if it doesn't feel right to you. You know, if the natural progression is going in a direction that just doesn't work for you, and that's fine. Some people aren't interested in evolving, you know? So I'm happy to say that I can use this very happily because it's part of the evolution of music technology, which feels natural to me, but it works. I don't have to compromise. And the fact that it's so compact, I can just throw it in my luggage, and that's tremendous. That's a real coup. So it's a win-win.